Anyone who wants is more than welcome to steal Dropout's very obvious business playbook and run with it. It's kind of shocking that more people have not followed in our footsteps. In an ideal world, though, there would be even more of these brands that could all steal from each other.
This phrase is like one that people get very touchy on. What do you feel about the term content creator?
Wow. Yeah, it is. It is a bit of a catch-all. I mean, I'm honored to be considered one in the sense that like I think I do it on a sort of a macro scale and a micro scale, right? Like I sort of create shows that are my own, and then I also play a hand in other people creating their shows, and then I
To
also
quote yourself, you've been here the whole time.
very well used, Christy. To me, what the term has become synonymous with is we now live in a world where, given mass consolidation in Hollywood, stuff is happening at a bigger and more expensive scale than ever before. And what that's also given birth to is this kind of like reactionary pool of folks who are trying to do this rigorously independently. And those are the content creators. Like they are independent from the rest of the Hollywood machine for the most part, unless they tap into it for whatever reason. But I think content creator by an abstract definition can obviously be used to apply to a lot of folks. I think it is nice to have terminology with which to call this group of upstarts. I find them very inspiring. I also like that we have a term for them that's differentiated from influencer, right? Because you could say like comedy influencer. I've heard that bandied about as well. And influencer is thornier for me than creator is.
We'll speak to that. Where do you feel the distinction is between content creator and influencer?
Influencer, like dating all the way back to the Tumblr days, which is not to say that Tumblr isn't still around, but to say like when it first appeared on the market was also in the first influencers. There was this vibe of our lives, your parasocial relationship with us is what is meant to be the content here. As we've carried on with Dropout, as much as possible, we want for the content to stand alone and be very creative and be what brings you to the table as audience. Be that a social audience or Dropout's audience. Like Dropout has lots of fans who don't subscribe. They just watch clips. And as far as I'm concerned, those are just customers who haven't rolled the dice on us yet. And I love them, and no problem there as far as I'm concerned. But the distinction is, are you a consumer of our content, or are you someone who's compelled and attracted to the table merely because you like the personalities or the lifestyles of the folks involved? I think this is a little mixed up in the world of Dropout, where we have fans of both the content and the company and who we are as people. But let's be very clear that like the content is first.
What drives you as a content creator?
I'm driven a lot by novelty, as would probably surprise no one, which is to say, I know that folks love to rank game changer episodes. I really try to stop myself from watching or reading those threads, because to me, the goal isn't to produce the best episode of Game Changer every time. If it was, the episodes would actually become remarkably one note. The goal is to try to differentiate Game Changer as much as possible from episode to episode. And particularly now that we're 70 some odd episodes into the show, after this season, I've backed myself so far into a corner where it's like, it's harder and harder to do something that we've never done before in any way, shape, or form. So the thing that excites me the most is originality. And I think it's a sliding scale where sometimes I feel like we've like knocked it out of the park, and other times I feel like we're doing stuff that reflects in a way on something else that we've done, but maybe not directly. And of course, in the case of a select few episodes, like I can't resist doing this again. I had too much fun. But I think the same is honestly true with other Dropout programming too. I'm always asking myself, would another streaming platform do this? And if they would, it's a big knock against it. I want to feel as if what we're doing on Dropout has never been done before. And my creative high is when I'm confident that the answer is yes.
You had said in your conversation with Hank Green about how you want to plant like weird little trees on the internet. If you're building a path for other creators to follow in and to create independent media outside of the Hollywood machine that has all these demands that include a lot of money and a lot of privilege and access that most people don't have, what is that path that you want to lay for them?
There is an example here for the independent content creator. And if I haven't been abundantly explicit as to what this is, it is the following, which is you can create a long form thing and put it behind a paywall and then put clips on social, and it works. And I was so determined to prove that it works that I partnered with my friend Catherine on her web series Pretty Gay, which is outside the Dropout network.
Show.
Listen, we put a little bit of money into that to help Catherine get it off the ground. And what we really did hand her was like the social strategy. And Catherine is now absolutely crushing it. And she is just someone, deserving of the spotlight who never had it before. So that path totally exists. I think that people, a lot of the time, will build things and put them behind a paywall with no marketing plan in place. I think even more times, they will put stuff on social imagining that it will lead to something, but not sure what. And it can be a great business card, but it is only that. It's sort of a business card pointing nowhere in particular. So you can do that hoping that like SNL will come knocking on your door, but you really do want to have somewhere to point people to. I would love to live in a world with more dropouts. I'll make no sort of mystery out of saying that I think in a lot of ways we've gotten very, very lucky. I think that anyone who wants is more than welcome to steal Dropout's very obvious business playbook and run with it in no particular order. Create a subscription platform, maybe using Vimeo or the many platforms like it, which are essentially free to get started on. 2, as I was just saying, create a long form product and then market it using social media. Something we've done in particular that might be a little clever is every show has its own social channels, not the network overall. That's allowed us scale on social media in a way that like not everyone finds. It also allows us to take advantage of like algorithmic consistency, meaning the algorithm loves it when you feed it the same type of thing over and over again and not when you feed it disparate things. So that's 2. And the third is don't be a schmuck. It could apply from everything from like, profit sharing, paying for auditions, inclusivity, becoming the teammate of your workforce instead of their antagonist. And there are all sorts of ways you can prove that to people, but you do have to prove it to people. Like you have to put your money where your mouth is, right? Like people will respond to you defensively and guardedly because you're the boss of anything. So you have a lot to prove. In a way, it's kind of shocking that more people have not followed in our footsteps.
Sure.
But also, like we came at this as College Humor. We had some wind in our sails. Arguably, we didn't start at zero, and getting off the ground from zero is probably harder than we had it. If we lived in a world with more dropouts, there'd be more learnings. Like people, I'm basically inviting people to steal from us, but like I would love to be able to steal from more people. I do a bit. We have great relationships with Critical Role, obviously, and the Try Guys and Mythical. In an ideal world, there would be even more of these brands that could all steal from each other.
Well, I really want to talk about Fool's Gold to that degree because Game Changer Season 7, I think, is phenomenal. And I think just the way you guys up the ante, but particularly with Fool's Gold, like you've said that like about 10% of Dropout signups come through social media. And as you just said here, a lot more people are at least watching on social media if they're not directly contributing through subscription.
To be very clear, Chrissy, 90% is through social media. About 10% is through paid.
Oh.
That's how people are finding the platform. So the vast majority of people are finding out about us through social media. In a normal streaming platform, normal business, way, way, way less will come through organic channels. It'll come mostly through paid channels. It's 10% that's coming through paid. It's 90% that's coming through other sources. One of those sources is direct traffic. Who knows how people are finding out about us directly? But I would guess a lot of those people are people who are finding out about us through socials.
Thank you for
Realistically, that
clarifying.
number is probably like at least 75%. So I'd
Wow.
say 75% to 90%, yeah.
Because we've talked a bit about audience, and I call this the Weezer problem. And I'm wondering if this is something Dropout is starting to approach. And it is essentially that there was a point where liking Weezer, people became suspicious of you, and it was like, I liked Weezer in the Blue Album. And I think Dropout
Yeah.
fans, there is a part of the fandom that really identifies as feeling connected to and identifying with the discovery of Dropout. And like, oh, you don't know about Dropout, and we love to share the news or share our passwords and all that. But are you ever worried that you're going to hit the point where by becoming maybe too popular, you potentially lose fandom?
Krista, you could have stopped it. Are you ever worried about? I worry about everything. Of course. Of course. You name it, I've worried about it at some point. I very much try, not only as a creative person, but also a bit as an executive, to tune out a lot of that stuff in a very therapized, it's none of my business what the fandom thinks of me kind of way, because nothing will get me feeling more self-conscious and therefore stunted creatively than being sort of like overly tuned into those voices. I think that like we've outgrown the garage in a lot of ways, and to use the Weezer analogy, it's like, okay, so we're transforming kind of like from garage band into this other thing, and the in between maybe feels a little awkward. And where are we going? And are all of our fans going to be there when we arrive there, wherever it is? One way to look at this is we lose fans every day. I mean, Dropout loses subscribers every single day. We just gain more than we lose. The metabolism of like, we're going to lose some people and gain other people is actually probably a pretty healthy way to look at this, which is like those day one fans maybe won't follow us for our whole journey, and that's okay. And there'll be other folks along the way. And if we had a role to play in that exercise, I would actually hope that it's something along the lines of, we'll be there for you when you need us,
Notably, you guys raised prices, and the reaction, I will say, probably didn't go as you anticipated.
It was a big day of churn, which is to say we lost a lot of subscribers that day who then signed up immediately again. There's like, if you were just look at the data, it makes no sense. You're like, what on earth happened this day that you lost so many subscribers and you gained so many more? I happen to know, again, just vis-a-vis the data, that there are a lot of fans, and I mean a lot of fans, who unsubscribe to resubscribe.
Did people unsubscribe so they could resubscribe for the higher rate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So then you guys created Superfan.
Yes, we created Superfan. I mean, Superfan was created under the auspices of, if you really want to throw more money at us, you're welcome to. And you would probably be, without me getting into the specifics, you'd probably be surprised as to how many people made that decision. We wanted to be very careful with the messaging and with the offering, that we aren't trying to create a sort of a class system here. At the same time as like enough people have subscribed now that we've got to put a little bit of thought into what the future of this thing is. Is it called Superfan forever? Do we tweak it slightly as the offering changes? I think it'll probably continue to get refined as time goes on, like just in order so that we feel like A, we're offering something of value, and B, we're not alienating anybody who doesn't want whatever that is. I mean, you could look at the economy of Dropout as like, here are a group of people who have decided to pay us more money even though they don't really need to. Here on the other side are a group of people who are sharing their password with other people who can't afford Dropout. And what a nice sort of trade-off.
And I will say this, like from a personal note, I have friends who I've said, I think you'd really like Dropout, I'll share my password. And my friend circle, they like so much what you guys are doing, both with inclusivity and politically in regards to like labor, that they're like, no, I don't want your password. I'm just going to subscribe, which is not a thing I hear.
Totally. And that is also hugely helpful. I mean, sharing your password is a form of marketing. It absolutely is. And to whatever extent Dropout is like Patreon, where people subscribe not only because they want to see the stuff, not only because it's paywalled, but also because they want to support the work that we're doing. it can have that effect finally. Listen, every bit counts. We try and as much as possible to put a huge amount of money on screen, which means just in the form of talent, in the form of crew, in the form of projects. We have a huge amount in development right now. If I had the resources, I have 10 shows I would greenlight tomorrow. I don't, which means there's a bit of a line out the door right now for those projects. That's fine. We can wait. We're patient. But the more budget we have to play with, the more exciting stuff we can get up to.